All right, today we're jumping into a review for a novel that's got a lot of people talking and for a really specific reason. It's Virginia Evans's The Correspondent. So, what's all the buzz about? What makes this book feel so different? Well, let's get into it. So, let's start with a big hook from the review. Just imagine this. What if a novel felt less like something you're reading on a page and more like something you're listening to? This is the whole idea behind The Correspondent. It's an intimate, immersive experience that's just fundamentally different from your typical novel. So first up, let's explore that core concept. What does it actually mean for a book to feel like something you're listening to? This quote from the review just nails it, doesn't it? The whole story is told through personal letters. So as you're reading, it doesn't feel like some author is narrating a story at you. It really feels like you're leaning in, listening to a private conversation as it unfolds. You're tuning in, not just turning pages. And that gets to the book's unique pacing. You know how so much of modern fiction is just go, 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 rushing you from one plot point to the next? Well, this novel does the complete opposite. It actually invites you to slow down. The rhythm is deliberate, and it creates this space for you to think and feel right there with the characters. Here, depth is the entire point. So, how in the world does the author pull this off? Well, in this next section, we're going to look at the novel's unconventional structure and how it's all built, piece by piece. The book is what's called an epistolary novel. It's a pretty classic form, actually, but Evans uses it in this really modern, psychologically rich way. The whole story is built from just these pieces of correspondence. That's it. And this structure, it creates a totally different reading experience. A traditional story usually gives you everything, right? A clear narrator, a straight timeline, everything is laid out. But here, you only get fragments. There's no guide telling you what to think, which means you have to become an active participant. You're the one piecing it all together. Seriously, think of it like a giant puzzle. Every letter is a single piece. Some of them fill in the gaps, while others just create brand new questions. So you're not just passively consuming a story, you are actively building it in your own mind, which, let me tell you, makes for an incredibly engaging read. Okay, so that's the how, but what's the what? What's at the core of all this? This section dives right into the emotional heart of the book, its characters, and the powerful themes they're wrestling with. Right at the center of this whole web of letters is our protagonist. And the review is very clear. This is not your simple hero's journey. What we get instead is this deep, layered, and almost startlingly realistic psychological portrait. And what makes this character feel so real is that they are allowed to be full of contradictions. Just like the review says, they are strong yet vulnerable, articulate yet confused. They're not some perfect hero, they're just human. And it's those messy, conflicting traits that make them so authentic and relatable. The other characters aren't just background noise either. Each one kind of acts like a mirror, reflecting a different side of the protagonist. I mean, the way our main character writes to their mother is completely different from how they write to a friend, and that contrast reveals so much about their personality and their relationships. And through these relationships, the book explores some really powerful dualities. It's a story about searching for connection, sure, but it's also about the deep pain of isolation. It's about trying so hard to communicate and the messy reality of being misunderstood. The real story happens in that gap between what we want to say and what people actually hear. So, what does this all add up to? In this next section, we're going to talk about the emotional impact. What does it actually feel like to read this book? First things first, don't go into this expecting huge plot twists or crazy cliffhangers. The power here comes from these quiet, deeply human moments. The review calls them emotional echoes, these small little interactions or realizations that just stick with you long after you've put the book down. So where the book really shines is in its subtlety. It absolutely nails emotional authenticity. Nothing feels faked. Its narrative structure is genuinely innovative, the character development is deep and personal, and maybe most importantly, it trusts you. It respects your intelligence enough to let you connect the dots without spelling everything out. But, those same strengths mean this book isn't going to be for everyone. The pacing is definitely slow, the narrative is fragmented by design, and if you're a reader who really needs a neat, tidy ending, the ambiguity might be a little frustrating. It's important to see these not as flaws, but just as defining characteristics of the experience. Which brings us to the big question, our final section. Based on everything we've talked about, how do you know if this book is actually for you?
So, who is the perfect reader for The Correspondent? Well, according to the review, it's someone who loves character driven stories way more than plot heavy ones. Someone who really appreciates literary fiction, enjoys nuance, and is actively looking for a slower, more reflective read.
The review also makes a really important point about the book's value. You're not just buying a few hours of disposable entertainment here, you are investing your time in a singular, memorable experience, one that's going to stick with you and make you think and feel on a deeper level. So, the final verdict is pretty straightforward. The Correspondent is a novel that will absolutely reward the patience and attention you give it. If you're willing to meet it on its own terms, the payoff is a story with some genuine, lasting emotional impact. And that really leaves us with one last big thought, doesn't it? In this world we live in that's just constant noise, constant distraction, what can a quiet story really offer us? So maybe the real question isn't just, hey, should I read this book? It's more like, what can a quiet, deliberate story like this one actually give to all of us right now? Something to think about. Thanks for digging into this with me.